Good evening. Welcome to the Residency Program end of semester show. And I'm John Blake. I'm the director at the Miami University Center for Community Engagement in Over-the-Rhine. And we're here, as we are every year, to celebrate our cohort that has been immersed in Over-the-Rhine for the past 15 plus weeks. So with me tonight, I have Bonnie Newmeyer, who is our community liaison. Thanks for being here, Bonnie. And of course, the cohort, and we'll introduce them as they speak and talk about their experience here in Over-the-Rhine this semester. Quick word about the center. This is our 20th year in Over-the-Rhine, but it's built on many more years of engagement between Miami University and the People's Movement here in Over-the-Rhine, Cincinnati. And we think it's important to have that continuity. Part of why we're here is not just to come in and do research or really interesting projects, but to walk alongside the community, to work with them. We're here at their invitation. So a lot of the messaging tonight will be around that. And in advance, a lot of this is about the student experience, but it's also a big thank you to our community sponsors. They act as our mentors and our guides as we go through the semester. So with that, Dr. Bonnie.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks a lot for being with us here tonight online. And I've been here over 50 years now, a longtime neighborhood resident and activist, and been a part of developing this program over the years. So I'm really excited every year that we have this program to hear how the students experienced it and what impacts they're bringing with them when they leave. And I want to first say thank you. I think to the students when you first came, that was something that I said to you was thank you for taking the risk and having the courage to say yes to this experience, not completely knowing what it might be like for you. And I want to say that again tonight. Thank you for your courage and taking that risk. And I also want to take this time to thank everybody that came to a class to share your story with the students, all the organizations that the students had an opportunity to visit in the neighborhood and heard from staff people at those organizations. Because part of this program would not be as impactful and successful if it wasn't for the neighborhood welcoming and engaging the students and the students engaging us. And both of us benefit because of what goes on in those interactions. So I just want everyone to know that this program is successful because of our movement's history, our years of effort in trying to bring quality of life in our neighborhood, challenging the injustices that are here and things like that, and how the students work with us to help advance those basic human rights that we work for day in and day out. So thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, we didn't just show up in August to do this. Our program comes out of the work that Tom Dutton started with the community in 1981. And we acknowledge Tom, always try to bring him in the room. Tom passed in 2017, if you're not familiar with his work, but he heeded the community's call to work with them. And I think he and Bonnie went to great lengths to make this a reciprocal program and not one that is, academy first and community second. So thanks to Tom and his family for making this possible. And we hope to be doing honor by Tom's work here. Also, do you want to talk about Mr.
Right, and the other thing is the students take classes here, 3 classes, but a lot of what happens is outside of the classroom when people are meeting their neighbors, walking the streets, to and from classes and all that. And we want to recognize particularly Earl, Mr. Earl, we call him, who's a next door neighbor to the students where the students live. And sadly, we lost Earl at the end of November. And this year, students really didn't get a chance to get to know Earl, but all the other Miami students, and if any of you are watching this tonight online, just Earl impacted the students. He watched out physically for you. He watched out emotionally for you. He sat for hours just having conversation with people and letting people know about what he thought about the neighborhood and things like that. And Earl served our neighborhood for years as the cook at the drop-in center shelter house for the homeless. And since his retirement, he's been what some people in the neighborhood call the mayor of 14th and Race, because he's sitting on his stoop, no matter if you're a neighbor or a stranger, that he engages the people that walks by his stoop. And many of the students he just engaged. So we just want to hold up Earl as being particularly significant for this program over many years.
It's also, we're on the first floor of a building that has 20 units of affordable housing. It's called Buddy's Place. And it's a remarkable place to be. And much of what we do here is informed by the passing that we have with people in the building. And that's a remarkable thing for our program. So our neighbors really are a part of this program. They inform it. With that, we wanted to acknowledge the recent passing of some neighbors in Buddy's Place, including Norman, who we knew as Tank, and also Cameron. But more recently, this afternoon, we had a dear friend named Tony Drummond who passed away. And we're still kind of getting our head around that, quite honestly. But we wanted to acknowledge Tony and his many contributions to our program, mostly through our storefronts, community arts work, which has us doing all kinds of events from the center, including large-scale projection, performance, etc. More recently, we worked with Tony on the redevelopment plans at Imagination Alley, where we were trying to work with the city and 3CDC to make sure that there was an equitable approach to the redevelopment of Imagination Alley, which is a public space near us. Tony was always out there, even as recently as October 31st for Halloween, and helping to organize things for the kids in the neighborhood. He was a dear friend of mine, and also really informed a lot of our current cohort in their work. So we wanted to just honor Tony and send him and his family all the love we can. So thanks, Tony.
And he particularly engaged the students this year, and he was just here in this space. The students had a Thanksgiving gathering and invited Tony and his friend Mark to it. And just how he's kind of followed after Earl's footsteps, really, in mentoring Miami students. So we really do honor Tony's contributions tonight and feel the sorrow that his family's feeling. And Tony's been a part of this building for as long as we've had it as Buddy's Place. So he's going to be missed tremendously.
Some of the wonderful and challenging thing of being in the community is you're really in it deep, and we appreciate the students doing that this semester. You enter into a continuum, right? You enter into something that's already started, but then you have your impact on it. And just for everybody's information, it's a 15-week long immersive semester. So we have courses here at the center that include multiple disciplines, and the students come down from any major. This fall, we happen to have students from architecture and interior design, as well as EDT or student teaching, and that made up our cohort. Many thanks to Jen Summers from Peasley Neighborhood Center, Chris Wilkie of Northern Kentucky University, Pat Youngblood from Peasley, and also Jeff Kruth from our Department of Architecture and Interior Design for helping coordinate our curriculum this fall. It's a lot of work to do, and a lot to, as the students will attest, there's a lot of work they have to do yet. But we think it's important to balance the inquiry that the students have through the academics with the actual experience that they have living down here. So it's not an untethered internship. It's not simply, let's go in and do some projects. The students are learning alongside the community, and we appreciate the community support in doing that.
And also what we do outside of class, on Wednesday evenings, I facilitate a journal circle with the students. I feel it's really, really important that the students have a space where they can write and voice about what they are experiencing through the program. And each student can hear about what the other student is wrestling with, and they can have a space to express what they're going through. So that's been a real valuable, I think, resource for the students to have a space where they can hear other students' perspectives and then write about their experiences. And also this year, some years we've had community potlucks on Sundays. That worked really well. But for this semester, due to the COVID thing, we thought that we would do something on Friday evenings with a smaller group. And so we'd had these things called educationals, where the students got to visit various organizations in the neighborhood, like Center for Respite Care, Jimmy Heath House. And we also actually were able to take in the exhibit that was at the Freedom Center. Dr. Carolyn Mazlumi had an exhibit of over 50 some quilts around the killing of George Floyd and the issue of racism and how that's impacting us. And so the students got to see that and witness that and write about that in their journaling class. So it was a variety of things that we were able to do. And some of the years, students have been able to volunteer at different organizations, particularly if they're not of the architect class or the student teaching. But this year, you know, the students did some odds and ends things around that. But it was a good thing that we met on Friday evenings, you know, just to have educationals. So that was good too.
Well, again, there's a lot of information to give about our program, but I think it's best at this point to turn it over to the cohort, to our residency program students, and they've prepared a slideshow, but then also are going to talk about their experiences this fall. So I will hand over the mic carefully.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I think that I speak for all of us in the residency program. We say that this has been a very impactful experience for all of us. I know that I have absolutely loved my time being down here and have learned and grown so much over the past 15 weeks. So tonight as John said, we prepared a slideshow. So we're going to start with talking about some of the things that we've done within the community, and then we will each go around and share some of our stories.
Mm-hmm. And we just wanted to give a huge thank you to the community members, family and friends, and basically everyone that's helped to facilitate this program and help its success.
All right. So one of the very first kind of events that we had within the community was right after the reopening of Imagination Alley. It was really our architecture majors that facilitated all of this and made this event really happen. The goal of it was kind of to have an event in which the community could reclaim back the space. When, Imagination Alley was being redeveloped, a lot of the community members didn't really have a say or weren't listened to about what they wanted the space to look like. So the goal of this was really to bring that space back to the community. So as I said, I commend all of our architecture majors. This was really their baby. I just had the pleasure of attending. I carried around Miss June, one of the community members, on Zoom so that she could be there as well. That was my pretty much one and only role. But this event was probably one of my favorites in my time in Over-the-Rhine. We have some pictures up here, and you can just see how much joy there was in this event. And it was so cool being new to this community, and a community that I, was not necessarily a part of yet, just getting to know, and just how welcoming and loving everyone was and willing to invite us in and have these great times with us.
One of the the other community events that we helped to facilitate as well was the Peasley Campfire event. So we have an event annually that the Miami University students and the Peasley team helped to put together. This year it was around Halloween time, and we were just able to put out some arts and crafts for some of the kids that attended the event, as well as some wrapped lunches and dinners. And we all just gathered around the campfire and just had some really awesome conversations. I was in charge of doing the photography for this semester, so that was also a really neat perspective to have, to be able to capture all these really awesome events and just moments that we've been able to experience together.
The next event that we were lucky to be a part of was Walk Our Blocks. That is an annual fundraiser put together by Over-the-Rhine Community Housing. I, in collaboration with Ben sitting next to me and Kayla, made the Walk Our Blocks map and legend for their itinerary for the night, and we all also volunteered at that gathering, helping to serve out food, to check people in, and it was a really exciting moment to see everybody come together that is influenced by Over-the-Rhine Community Housing and coming together to put forth funds and donations to keep this organization going.
And then one of the last things that we wanted to do as we depart this semester, our residency program wanted to put together some holiday care packages for the Center for Respite Care. This was one of the facilities that we were able to tour and learn more about during one of our educationals on Friday evening. And we were all very touched by it. So I actually created a fundraiser, a GoFundMe page, and we were able to serve just about raise $1,000. So this afternoon, Lydia and I actually put together the backpacks, and we did a flat lay of everything that was included. We have a really nice treat bag, some things to keep you warm, and a nice canvas backpack. So it was nice to be able to do that for the community as we depart. We also have our community partners as well that we'd like to acknowledge. These could be people that either helped us out during the semester or hosted one of our educationals. So that would include the Homeless Coalition. They gave us many of our tours of the city, the Jimmy Heath House, the Center for Respite Care, the Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center, the Peasley Neighborhood Center, which we have a lot of our classes, the architecture students do. It's also where we have our Wednesday evening journaling sessions. Venice on Vine also helped cater a lot of our events, and the Freedom Center we visited during the semester, and we also had a semester-long project with Over-the-Rhine Community Housing.
So during the semester, Lydia, Kayla, and I worked in association with John Blake on a design build project on the rooftop of Buddy's Place, the building we're sitting in now. And this was a really nice project for us. It was a real world project where we actually got to do a little bit of demo and create a new design for the rooftop, and worked in association with Over-the-Rhine Community Housing on this redevelopment. This was a nice project because we were able to actually create a budget and order materials for the final design, and we are in the process of putting that all together now in terms of actually building the project. So it's very nice.
We also included some of the pictures that we took during the demolition. This is really nice because despite our peers being on campus, this was nice to actually have some real world experience and actually draw up some details of how these tiles would specifically go together, create a real budget, like as Ben was saying. So it was really nice to have that real world experience, and also that connection with the people in the receptionist in the Over-the-Rhine Community Housing office. So it was nice to kind of connect with her, get her thoughts on our design, and really have that one-on-one connection with her.
I think at this time we're going to try and get Jax online. Jax couldn't be with us tonight, but is, like many of you, joining us via the internet. So with that, JJ, is it possible to get him up?
How's it going, guys? Apologies for my appearance. I've been in bed all day with the flu, but I'm very glad that we could make this work out and that I could still be here to be a part of this. Just kind of speaking on our experience down here, I think everyone touched on those events that we had throughout the year. For me, I'm from Cincinnati, so I kind of grew up around the area, just outside. I live near the Kenwood area, so I came down to Cincinnati for a lot of school events or whatever it may have been, free time. It's interesting. I remember writing in our first journaling group with Bonnie that I thought I knew the area of Over-the-Rhine so well when I was in high school, when I was younger, but within the first week, my eyes were completely open to a new world that I was so unfamiliar with. And I think coming into this last year, I'm graduating. It's kind of a big changing point in my life. This couldn't have been a better time to have this experience and meet all these new people who have kind of really opened my mind. And giving back to the community that I grew up in was a very important and special part of kind of wrapping things up at Miami for me. So this was a wonderful experience, and I couldn't have asked for a better last semester.
I'm Holly. I am a fourth-year early childhood education major, and I am currently student teaching at Rothenburg Preparatory Academy down here in Over-the-Rhine, and I have been placed in a kindergarten classroom for these past 15 weeks, and being able to student teach in the community that I'm living has been a really great experience for me, because I have a lot of the classes that I've taken at Miami, they really stress about how important it is to get to know the community that you're living with and working with, as well as all the students and faculty and everybody else. And so living down here has really made it so much easier to be able to connect with my students and the other teachers and staff that I work with at the school, to be able to learn more about the community and what these kids might be going through at home or what their daily life has been like. This residency program has been a lot of culmination of all of the stuff that I've learned throughout my years at Miami. I have been a part of the Urban Cohort on Miami I started junior year, and with that I've learned a lot about different definitions for social justice issues and explored a lot of topics and heard stories. But being down here and seeing them in person and learning more in depth about the different issues and specifically how they are affecting the community where I'm living in has been really great for me to further understand the issues and see them in a broader complex and see how they relate to me and the city where I grew up in, as well as all of the things that I've learned in my education classes. Now that I'm not actually reading about them or just hearing about the different strategies and methods, it's been really great to see them and use those different strategies and see how they play out in the classroom, and be able to learn how to be in the classroom and making connections with my students has been a really great experience this semester.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Fernmock. I am a fourth-year architecture student. I currently reside in Ross, Ohio. So although I was part of the residency program, I'm obviously a non-traditional student, and was down here as much as I could be with two kids at home. So immediately when we got here, Bonnie immersed us in everything that Over-the-Rhine has to offer. She taught us some of the history and different issues that were going on here in Over-the-Rhine. These are just a couple pictures from our walk in August when we first got here. Shortly after, we went to the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center and learned more about racism and saw the George Floyd quilts. This was our first meeting with Over-the-Rhine Community Housing, who facilitated the entire semester projects for us, and we were able to communicate with them and become immersed in the community, but also trying to learn and explore what different entities need in their businesses. This was the ribbon cutting ceremony of Imagination Alley. In previous year, I worked with John Blake on a project with the Storefronts group, and Mary Claire collected a lot of information from the community as to what they wanted to see Imagination Alley become. And we were able to collect all this data and put a display together. So Imagination Alley ribbon cutting ceremony, although it wasn't exactly what we imagined, I think it's still a step forward for the community and hopefully to bridge the gap between 3CDC and the community members themselves. This was the first display here. The first picture is the display that we created last year. And then we repurposed the circles that we spent so much loving time on here in our window, so people could understand that we did hear them, although not everything that they imagined for Imagination Alley came to fruition, that we heard them, and we respect that they spent time communicating and thinking about this project, and they really did put forth a lot of effort, and it was heard. This was a fun project, although I wasn't able to attend the actual Moensco and the Shakes because of COVID, but this was just a poster that we created to start advertising in the community.
Alyssa's group also, in our writing class, we were all tasked with creating a community art piece. So her group ended up actually creating an interactive hopscotch obstacle course, and it was really neat. She was inspired by her daughter watching a ton of TikToks. So she created, her and her group created something of the same thing, and we also dispersed some and gave out some holiday little goodie bags for Halloween, which was really nice. So we did that in the Imagination Alley space as well. And then she also included some Thanksgiving pictures that we took at the end of the semester here. It was really nice to have kind of a potluck style dinner or evening before we all departed. So it was nice to have that one little feast before we leave.
Hi, my name is Ben Coleman. I am a fourth-year architecture major from Cincinnati, more specifically in Madeira, Ohio. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the cohort and all the community partners that were involved in making this happen. This was a really life-changing experience and something that I will never forget, and hopefully I'll be able to carry it on with me throughout the rest of my time at Miami and moving forward in my career. I'd like to talk about how this program has given me the confidence to speak up and what I believe in. I feel like before I came into this program, I didn't like talking about, social justice issues as much as I do now. And this program and Bonnie and everyone else involved has really helped me have that confidence to speak out against issues that are going on in the community and across the country. And these issues are things like gentrification, and there are people that live here and their voices deserve to be heard. I feel like through my classes and community events, I've learned about how important it is for a neighborhood to have a public space. It's important that people show up and engage in a space, and gathering together and speaking up for something you believe in sends a message, a very powerful message. Through studio and our independent study, I've learned about the importance of community input when designing and being able to work with on a first-hand basis with the actual people you're designing for, and just very inspiring, and really truly brings me to a project. So I really appreciate all the work we've been able to do, and those are some of the pictures on that last slide of the independent study project of the demolition, and it's just been a lot of fun to be a part of all the great stuff going on down here. So.
Hi, I'm Lydia Noel. I am an architecture major and an art and architecture history minor, and I'm from Akron, Ohio. Coming into this program, I was very shy and I was in dire need of professional experience architecturally. And that really was the decision, or was the reason for the decision of coming here. But throughout this program, I feel like I've grown in so many different ways, it's hard to explain them all. I've never lived in a city, and like a lot of us, I grew up in a dominantly white neighborhood that had little to no diversity, and it's proven to be very detrimental to how I grew up. But coming here, I really tried to open my heart to this community. I was so excited at the beginning to explore the city, to meet new people, to talk to people, to learn and listen, and that's just exactly what happened. I felt like the courses and the experiences that we've gained from the courses and the people that we've listened to throughout our courses are what influenced me most within the program. Our educationals, and specifically the class Power Policy and Service that Jen Summers and Pat Youngblood taught, was very influential to me and really taught me how to listen. We had community members come in once a week to share their thoughts and their experiences and their hardships throughout life on certain different policies and different topics. And this class and those educational sessions were where I really learned how to listen to others. And I think that's where I gained most of the knowledge in this program. Another course that was very influential was Designing, Writing, and Social Change that was taught by John Blake. And the work that we did with storefronts was the most, the most teachable moment that I had, I think, when we were trying to come up with different events for community engagement within Imagination Alley. We worked with different storefront members to come up with ideas to create some kind of events or sessions that community members could feel welcome at in that space. And that really taught me how to be an ally and where I sit in that allyship and where my positionality is. In another class called The American City Since 1940 that Jeff Kruth taught, I learned how to research, and the biggest part of this was that I learned how to dig out the histories of communities and how to tell that story in the right way. And I think within the past year, a lot of light has come about with how histories are told and how they should be told and what should be told. And throughout that class is where I really learned and where I really grew to a point where I feel confident to be able to do some research, figure out the stories of what happened to people and the reality of it and how to successfully tell that to others. Our independent study gave me the best perspective of the reality of a small scale project where we learned how to do budgets. I learned how to speak to clients in meetings, and honestly, that class was the most fun, being able to do design build and like get our hands dirty and be able to just, be able to build something special for somebody else. And then lastly, our studio class was the most influential time here for me. Throughout the studio, we interviewed staff that worked for Over-the-Rhine Community Housing to get a good perspective on what they wanted within their space. We were assigned to redesign their warehouse, and this was the most influential to me for my future because this is taught me how to design by residents, or design by residents instead of designing for people. And it's really made me want to turn my career towards affordable housing and helping others. So that was the most important time for me here.
Hi, my name is Anna Page. I am a fourth-year education student. I am a science education and chemistry double major, and I was one of the student teachers this semester. I was placed at Walnut Hills High School, teaching both chemistry and 8th grade science. So a lot of what I have to say kind of echoes what Holly said a little bit about why I wanted to be a part of the residency program. Like Holly, I have also been in the Urban Cohort for the past couple years, and being in that program has taught me a lot about social justice issues and being able to think more critically about our world and who has privilege and who is oppressed. But I think that it is really kind of hard to get a grasp on that until you actually see it in person. You can talk about it all day, and I know it's happening, but when you get down here and you see the people around you who are experiencing these things, gentrification and racial bias and racism and everything, it becomes a lot clearer that there needs to be a change. And I think being a future teacher, I'm kind of in a unique situation in which I can kind of talk about that with our upcoming generation. Also, like Holly said, we talk a lot in our program at Miami about the importance of getting to know the community in which your students are from. So ideally, I would have been student teaching as well in a school closer to the community or with more students that are present in the Over-the-Rhine community. But that was not the case, and that's okay. So being placed at Walnut Hills is a magnet school of Cincinnati, and it is a college prep high school. So students have to test into the school in order to attend. While it should be like a pretty close reflection of Cincinnati public schools as a whole, it is a very white-dominated school. So my experience student teaching has been quite different from Shannon and Holly's. And while I have had a wonderful experience and have absolutely loved it, talking with them about their experiences compared to mine and their schools compared to mine has really showed me and has got me to think more deeply about how much privilege is at my school, and just how unfair it is that in our education system, how some students have more opportunities and better resources than other students. And I have been thinking a lot recently about how I, as a teacher, can make that change and how I can, push to make education a little bit more equitable for all students. I haven't quite figured out that answer yet, but I also haven't entered the profession. So I'm hoping that as I teach more and learn more about the world, that will become more clear to me. But I am very thankful for my experiences down here that have really helped me to reflect on what needs to change. But as I said, I had an absolutely wonderful time in my student teaching placement, and that is really just because of my students. I was very bad at taking pictures while I was down here. So a lot of the pictures on my slide are things that were made by my students or that my students wrote or from my classroom. So as I said before, I taught chemistry and 8th grade science at Walnut Hills, and coming into a fully in-person year after COVID was a lot, has been a lot. My kids are taking it like champs. There's definitely been a lot of adaptations that have been made. And my student teaching has really showed me a lot of what my students go through that I don't necessarily understand, and that school really is a place for them, and that their teachers are people that they are able to trust in and can be a safe place for them. And that's probably what I've learned the most is that the kind of teacher that I want to be is an empathetic teacher, one that my students feel like they can come to, that they can learn from, but that they can also come to and trust in, to always be there for them. But as a whole, this experience has been a lot of learning, a lot of growing, and a lot of reflecting. Even though, I have done all of this or had conversations about social justice in the Urban Cohort and in my education classes, there was still a lot of biases and things that I needed to address within myself, and just how I can grow to be a better, more socially just person. And yeah, this experience has meant a lot for me, and thank you to my cohort and to John and Bonnie for everything.
Hello, my name is Kayla Skursky, and I'm a third-year architecture major, and I'm also minoring in arts management. I actually declared it this semester, so it's official now. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'd like to first start out with a poem that I wrote in Bonnie's class. It was my first piece, actually. So, the gentle hum of engines turning, swelling as the day prolongs, breathing in harder and louder to keep the precious cargo cool inside. Eventually, the engines tire of turning on these hot summer days and settle in as the sun sets, although some creep into the night. One mechanical beast that prowls these streets makes itself known with two simple dings, occasionally a horn. Right outside my bedroom window, one of its resting spots resides, setting off its dings every 15 minutes or so. Due to its size, all others scatter and crawl to make room for this beast that dwells in the city. Always, constantly, these engines hum within Cincinnati. Like a faulty floor spot we learn to tune out, the hum is slowly transforming from this pesky presence into a gentle hum, an almost comforting white noise. Squeaky brakes and all. Because nothing is perfect, but as long as we learn to live within these instances, sometimes they become perfectly imperfect in and of themselves. I also feel like this could be a metaphor of sorts for my experience here as well. Definitely, literally getting used to the Cincinnati Bell connector, what I wrote about the beast, driving by our house our apartment every 15 minutes. But I definitely think this experience has truly transformed me as an individual and how I perceive the world. I definitely perceive it in a whole different light now, especially within my major, architecture, a lot of designs in the industry. Instead of designing with someone, we typically design for someone. So to have that realization even of it could be a way more successful and interactive experience with the clients if you design with them versus for them, that's pretty powerful as well. And places of gathering are so important, helps facilitate our interactions with each other amongst our community. So I feel like architecture definitely has a way of changing how things are now. I also included some of the pictures that are to be included in one of our Street Vibes article. Street Vibes, we work closely with them in our design, writing, and social change class with John Blake and Chris. Gabby also helps facilitate the class as well. And I basically wrote about the redevelopment in Over-the-Rhine and the disparity and displacement it's caused in the community. It's definitely something that can sometimes be a touchy subject, especially because the redevelopment that has recently happened has displaced over 50% of the pre-existing population that has been here. So I took some pictures and captured some moments of architecture that is preventative and hostile. So this type of architecture prevents these places of gathering from being interactive with one another and to truly be a place of relaxation, of respite. So to capture that, it was really awesome to have like that opportunity. I also included one of our semester-long projects that we did for Over-the-Rhine community housing. Again, that was a very, I was honored to have that connection with the community and to work so closely with one of our community members and to have them open us with open arms. Very meaningful to have them be comfortable with us designing with them. It was really awesome too because not only did we get to meet with the administrative board, but we also got to meet one-on-one with their whole crew even. So we got to know the ins and outs of their everyday task and their job. So it was awesome to have that connection with their crew. And it's nice to see when we walk by them on the street too, it's nice to have that buddy to say hi to. And then I also included on the last slide some moments I captured in the city that aren't related to class, but me just actually looking up and noticing the things that are happening around me. One of the windows, there's a quote in the window, it says, "I need you to know it can only get better from here, baby." So that was nice to walk by that every day on our way to Peasley. I was able to put together some words from my high school Spanish classes, but I did have to translate 2 words. I also included Music Hall, which is also a very important monument landmark for us, especially because our apartments, we wake up to Music Hall every day. And if you haven't seen it in person, you definitely should. It's an awesome building, though it is said to be haunted. Yeah, so thank you.
Hi, I will introduce myself in just a second, but first I want you to imagine something. Imagine it's 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. You live next to Washington Park and it's very tranquil. You look straight across Washington Park and you see Music Hall, which is pictured on the right here. It is one of the most historic buildings in Cincinnati. You hear a faint sound. As you sit on the couch next to your window, it gets louder and louder. Before you know it, the source of the sound passes by. 8 bachelorettes in a pedal car. As they pedal by the apartment, you hear them screaming, "Party in the USA" by Miley Cyrus. You look at your roommate and the 2 of you shout, "It's Tuesday, go home." Some may see it as simply an annoyance, but to me, it symbolized the changes that have been taking place and are continuing to take place in Over-the-Rhine. It is a clash between the classic Over-the-Rhine and the new gentrified version. So hi again, my name is Shannon Sullivan. I am a senior early childhood education major with a special education minor. I am from Kings Mills, Ohio, which I like to say is Kings Island, but not. I have lived in Cincinnati, or the area, my entire life, as have my parents. Prior to this experience, I could probably count on both of my hands, maybe even one, the number of times I'd been to Over-the-Rhine. And I only lived and grew up 20 miles away. Honestly, I carried a lot of stereotypes and biases about the area, most of which I picked up from the media. It wasn't until gentrification began taking over in Over-the-Rhine that my family began actually venturing down here. Moving in down here in August, I was nervous but excited to start a new venture. It felt like I was bursting the bubble I'd lived in my entire life, both in Kings Mills and in Oxford. While I had the nerves, knowing that John and Bonnie were close by, and that I was going through the same thing as 7 other Miami students, it made it easier. What helped the most was my friend Anna here. We got to know each other our freshman year at Miami, and it was definitely helpful to know that she was going through a lot of the same things as I was. There are a lot of firsts for me living here in Over-the-Rhine. For example, I learned to take the metro, something that I thought would be easy, yet on my first day going to Euler School where a student taught, I ended up in East Price Hill instead of Over-the-Rhine, which is the total opposite direction. My phone was at 13%, there was no bus in sight, and I had no idea where I was. Needless to say, I was terrified. I downloaded Uber, got a ride, and made it back to my new home, somehow still having some battery life left in my phone. Earlier I mentioned stereotypes and biases and what the media told me about Over-the-Rhine. Something happened to me while living here, though, that busted these stereotypes. It was the afternoon. I had just walked home, about 7 blocks actually from the bus stop. And I got to the apartment to find that the front door, because Anna and I live on the first floor, the front door was wide open. I left the door wide open. I walked to the Over-the-Rhine community housing office, and one of the kind workers, whose name I completely forgot to ask, walked with me and opened every door in the apartment once we got there to ensure that there was no one there. I, to this day, do not know how the door opened up, but it was unlocked for about 9 hours while Anna and I were at school, and yet nothing had been touched. My iPad and my headphones were still sitting on the front desk right where I had left them. How? Why? I learned how and why. Our neighbor Reggie kept an eye out and watched over our apartment while we were gone. He lives in the same building as Mr. Earl. And he made sure that no one broke in. So bring on your stereotypes and your biases. I don't buy into them anymore, because I know that there are so many people in Over-the-Rhine like Reggie.
And then our last slide that we'd like to present as well would like to congratulate Lydia, Anna, and Jax, and wish them luck in life, basically. we wish you the best, and it's been awesome to have you as friends and as fellow peers in this experience together, and we wish you the best.
Yeah, at this moment, apparently there's a way that our online viewers can ask questions. So hopefully that is obvious to you as viewers. And we'd love to have a little Q&A. One thing that's been a challenge this year, as you know, is that typically we would pack the house and it would be really easy to ask questions by just throwing it out. So this year, a little bit more staged, but with that, we would love to get input from you and provide more detail.
Yeah, if you have a question and you're watching online, feel free to use the Ask a Question button below the video to ask that question. And while we wait for more to come in, we do have one that came in during the presentation. He wants to know, how did working with community partners add to the experience of ethical and inclusive design?
I think some of you that were in the architecture covered that a little bit, but maybe you can give it a little more detail or a specific instance.
I can say a little bit about it if my classmates want to build upon it, but I think building, having the community connections that we do while we're designing helps us create better space and a better outcome than we can just on our own, basically because of the fact that the client that you're building for knows best how to use their space. So it should be a no-brainer as to ask them what they need within that space. But a lot of traditional firms nowadays don't even go and pursue that step, which should be the initial step that you should take when you're engaging any audience. Even if it is one person or a whole building of people, you should definitely have that one-on-one connection and treat them like a human being. But yeah.
Kind of to build on that a little bit, high key, I think it was easy for me first coming into this program to think based on previous experiences and what I had learned from the media. I could have very easily sat back in Ross, Ohio and designed a building somewhat that looks like the things that 3CDC are putting up all the time. But coming down here and learning about the community, about the inequities in the community, about social justice, it takes it to another level. It brings in another layer to the design that you just can't get if you're not actually in the community. And I think that's probably the most important takeaway from this entire experience is it's going to be hard for me to do research on a community on my MacBook and really have a feel for what that community is. You have to be on the ground floor in order to get something that's really meaningful.
I think even learning the process in which you have to kind of start to engage these individuals has also been really beneficial, because I didn't know anything of how to facilitate a client firm connection or relationship. And I forgot to mention too that when you do listen to some different communities that don't have as many privileges as you actually do become an ally of sorts, and you give your privilege back to them and advocate for them and their needs. So that, I also feel like that's very important.
Do you want to add anything? Okay, so we had one other question that came in. Again, if you have questions, you can use the ask a question button below the video. What was the best quote or phrase of the semester, either from another class, or from someone in the class, or from someone in the community?
I'm just gonna say this is an inside joke. Laser beams.
I have something to say. My favorite quote of all time is from John Blake, when every day that we come into class, he thanks us for coming in, as if we aren't paying to do this, or like we don't have to be here, but he just always thanks us for coming in, and that's something that makes us all laugh, and it's just something that I'll always remember.
I was thinking about the airlines, you know, where they always say, like, we know you have a choice and could fly with somebody else, but I kind of get that feel. I think, as Bonnie mentioned earlier, there really is a commitment that the students have to make, and it happens before you show up. Students who are in the Urban Cohort, my partner, Tammy Schwartz, academic partner, sets up and is certainly out there in the crowd. The idea is there's a whole curriculum by which you get engaged, and you do it progressively. There's a commitment there. And there's so much that you guys have, vying for your attention. All these hoops you got to jump through to get out of here, right? All these other distractions and challenges. And yet at the same time, I just don't want to take it lightly that you show up. So it's funny that you guys think it's funny, and I kind of do too, but I also don't want to. The other thing, I read once, and I think it's really wise, is that if you're grateful for something, you're attuned to get more of it. So perhaps my gratitude for you will, result in more folks like you coming and doing this. I think that's an important thing to acknowledge. So I'm glad it cracks you up. Laser beams just cracks me up. I could say laser beams without channeling Dr. Eden. So.
That last question came from Molly, by the way.
Oh yeah, I figured as much.
We have another question. We have two more questions that have come in. So from Chris Wilkie, he wants to know, what inspires you most about the history of activism in Over-the-Rhine over the past 50 plus years?
I can take this. Over the summer, which I took a course, a summer studio course that was just 6 weeks long, and it was a different studio than I've ever taken before. It was research-based, but going into that studio, I didn't know it would correlate so well with this program. I studied the history of Peasley Neighborhood Center and how the building came about and how the center came about. In the early 1980s, Peasley Neighborhood Center used to be Peasley Elementary School, and 6 mothers actually sued the Board of Education to keep the school going. And after losing that battle, they successfully won their next in buying the building and creating a neighborhood center for this community. And this project has inspired me so much. Like I said before in my personal statement, it really makes me think about how histories are told and who are a part of those histories and how they think it should be told and how it deserves to be told. And I've really got a great understanding and great knowledge for how to put forth those histories. And that was one of the most influential parts of my time here, was actually getting to go into the Peasley building for the first time, meet people who have been working there for years, meet Bonnie, who was a part of that movement from the start. And I will always take that with me, and it really inspires me to look deeper into other histories and figure out real stories and just bring light to those.
The last question we have as of right now is from Mary, and she wants to know what is coming up for the center, future plans and events.
I'm glad we have another hour so I can tell you. This is the 20th year of our center. We were founded in 2002, again by Tom, and working with the university and the community, and we've been in the space continuously since then. So to celebrate, we have a number of things that we're working through in the coming semester, likely in the spring, in the summer, and then also next fall. We're working on a variety of events. Of course, trying to get the community in the room would be good, but then also thinking in terms of connecting Tom's work and his writings, which are getting a lot of view worldwide, and there's people that are discussing Tom Dutton's work, and we want to bring them in the room a little bit and think of it in terms of symposia or other academic events, while at the same time having our foot in the community. So if I can go as an aside, thank you to Alumni Relations, including Emily and JJ in the space, and Molly Young, who helped us set this up. Because in a lot of ways, this is our test for how we might move ahead in the spring with events, to talk big about the ideas behind the center, and then also to talk deeply about how the center moves forward and how people who are out there tonight and others might be included in that. So that's kind of a generalized answer. I guess the big answer is stay tuned, and through this format and similar ones in the coming year, we'll have other events that we'd like to tout what we've done at the center, but we don't want to rest on our laurels either. We think there's a lot of future in this sort of education, and we're hoping that other students are seeing this and are interested in coming and joining us.
Can I say something?
Yep.
I also, we're working together on hopefully getting a grant so that we can really evaluate this 15 years that we've done the residency program, and just the impact that it has not only on the students, but on the community. And so that's something that we hope will get started in 2022. And then tonight, I just want to say, when John was hanging the Miami University flag, it just popped out of my head, and I said, oh, we should create, or have the students help us create, an Over-the-Rhine People's Movement flag so that that flag can hang right next to Miami. Because this really has been a partnership, and we need to really promote that along the way, that this program wouldn't be possible without all the work of the Over-the-Rhine People's Movement. And then the work of all the students over all these years has helped us advance some of the work that we're doing in the neighborhood. So it's a walking side by side, and maybe we can visually show that by creating an Over-the-Rhine People's Movement flag that can hang along with Miami's. Think so?
Sounds good. Kayla's like, I'm in. Another comment? Oh, we got to send this back around.
Sorry for the awkward mic handoff.
We'll take this back.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, even if there's anyone out in the audience right now that thinks that this could be an opportunity they'd want to seize someday, I definitely think that this style of learning is so tremendously beneficial and impactful versus the traditional learning route. And I think it's something that should be carried on in other ways too, maybe other universities do something of the same sort, but having these personal connections with the community members, you learn, it's something that you can't read in a textbook. The conversations you have with your neighbors aren't something you're going to read online. So having that opportunity to have those experiences with everyone should be something that's very valued, and I think that others should value it as well.
Thanks. So now I'm self-conscious about thanking people. Thanks, Lydia. And Jax, I know, is laughing at the moment. But it's necessary. Thank you all for doing this. And I'm so appreciative of folks in the crowd too, because I know there's a lot of things that could be happening tonight, and probably are. So to have your attention is wonderful. Look for more events in the future. We'll certainly be doing this next fall, but also in the spring we'll have some announcements through alumni relations and maybe other sources that talk about our 20th.
And thanks to our technology people
Yeah,
who have
boy.
made this possible.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, JJ. They're behind the curtain here. And yeah, and as I think about the people who are in the room, so to speak, I just well up with gratitude. So all you are out there, we wish you were here, and next time perhaps we will be. But until then, thank you to our 2021 cohort, and come back and see us, and let us know what you need in the future. We'll be here.
All right, and thank you, Johnny and Johnny. It's been a long
I'll take
day.
it.
John and Bonnie.
I'll be back next week.
Great. Lydia will be back next week. Okay.